You can have the ability and the power inside of you to make anything happen that you want to happen, and that this world needs you to follow your purpose, because when you follow your purpose, you are fitting that piece of the puzzle of this world that has just been waiting for you.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, your guide to traveling, investing, and living beyond borders, where we talk about living the life that you want to live, where you want to live it. From beautiful San Miguel de Allende, smack in the middle of Mexico, with your hosts, Jonathan Lockwood and James Guzman.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders. This is the podcast where we talk about getting past all of the stuff that keeps you inside that box. My name is Jonathan Lockwood. I'm with James Guzman now, but he's not in the studio here in San Miguel de Allende because he is attending Acapulco in Acapulco. Welcome, James.
Yeah, thanks. I'm down here in Acapulco. You know, it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely much hotter than it is there in San Miguel de Allende. I came here about 10 o'clock in the morning. I was already kind of feeling the humidity, sweating a bit, but it's been a fun time.
Okay, very good. So what was the purpose of Acapulco? Is it just an opportunity for libertarians and anarchists to get together, or what?
Yeah, they've had a lot of different speakers on different topics. Bitcoin has been a big topic. Different type of YouTube marketers or things like that, and it's been very interesting. Some artists. We had a bit of a pool party last night, and some people, some rappers and guitar players and stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a good networking experience specifically, and it's been great to meet a lot of listeners. There were a lot of listeners that kind of reached out and said they really appreciated this podcast. So I really appreciate that. I've been hanging out with Amy and Chris, Joshua. I met Christoph, and all of them have been listening to the podcast, so that's really encouraging.
What? People are listening to this thing?
Yep, they're really enjoying it. So
shake my damn head.
Yep.
Well, that's good. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I found somebody last night who said that they've listened to all the podcasts too, and I was like, well, great. How about you guys make some comments on our Facebook page or something? That'd be nice.
That's right. Yeah, but it's really encouraging, and I appreciate that when people reach out and let us know that they're listening, and they appreciate it because we're putting a lot of time and energy into this. So
when is Cody Wilson speaking?
Actually, he did not show up. He was supposed to speak today, but last I heard, he didn't come. So
that's too bad.
Yeah, I know he was one of the people that I was looking forward to see. But we've got this interview lined up. I don't know how good my sound quality is here, so I think I'll just let you take over this part of the interview. It sounds very interesting. I look forward to hearing it, and I'll be back next week.
Thank you, James Guzman. Okay, so our guest today on the Borderless Podcast is Valen Dawson. Now, Valen, I found, she lives here in San Miguel de Allende, and it was interesting because I'm looking for my voiceover site to start a separate website, and I just thought, the quickest way to do that was to do a WordPress site, and I found somebody locally in San Miguel who happens to be an expert in helping people with that, so I made an appointment with her. Little did I know, she was not only really good friends with a recent Borderless Podcast guest, Barnaby Anderson of Australia, who also lives here, but she's the one who told him about San Miguel de Allende. Is that right, Valen?
Yes, that's right. I told him about it and wrote about it.
Welcome to the Borderless Podcast.
Thank you.
So tell us, where are you from originally?
I grew up in Louisiana and in Arkansas. And I moved all around the United States because I've never been one to stay still for long. And I mean, if I listed all the names, it would sound like a Howard Dean campaign. So I'll skip that part. But I wound up the last place in the U.S. was Portland, Oregon. Okay.
Excellent place. And so at some point you decided it was time to not only move around your home country, but maybe get out of your home country. When was that?
That was almost 2 years ago. And yes, I'd always wanted to live outside of the U.S. to have a different perspective on life. And I also wanted to travel more. So I finally just decided to sell everything that I owned, sold my house, and came first to San Miguel de Allende. And then I did leave here for 9 months and decided that San Miguel was actually the place that was my favorite. After traveling all throughout Europe and Asia, I came back here.
Okay. Well, why don't you give us just a few of the points along the path? You came to San Miguel de Allende. You went where before coming back here after 9 months?
Okay. So before coming back here, I started out in Europe and I went to Spain. Ibiza was actually one of my favorite places that I visited on this trip. I could live in Ibiza if it wasn't for the cost. Yeah. But I love any kind of, Spanish sort of culture. So I also went to Portugal, which had lovely beaches, which I've written about. They're absolutely just mind-blowing. I really liked Portugal, except for the food wasn't my favorite after a while. Yeah. So too much cod for me. And I also spent a lot of time in Italy. I went to Sicily, Sardinia, the Cinque Terre. And then I went up to Scotland, to Edinburgh. Oh, I also went to Morocco on the way up to go up there. I loved Scotland as well, but I think the rainy weather would have kind of put me off there. But I absolutely adored it. And I'd love to go back and explore it more. And I would love to go to Ireland. It's still on my list. So, and then from there, I decided to relocate out of Chiang Mai, Thailand. So I went and got an apartment out of there, but I did a lot of traveling from there. And from there, I went to Myanmar, also known as Burma. I went to Cambodia, and I went to Nepal and visited those countries. And there was a lot I liked about Thailand, but there's a community here in San Miguel that I really missed. And so I'd say that was one of the main reasons that I came back.
Well, we're glad to have you back.
Well, thank you.
And, I realize only now that I never did read your bio. Let me do that now. So Valen Dawson is an inspirational travel writer for thiswaytoparadise.com, eatingtheglobe.com, and travelscamming.com. She also writes for and owns the inspirational site yourownlife.org. Her main goal is to help people discover the beauty of this world and in themselves. She is a lover of life and of all things. She spends her time connecting with people, nature, and new places. What a great little 9-month jaunt then.
Yes, it really was.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we start talking about your websites? We're going to end up talking about yourownlife.org because I know, Valen, that is the one you want to focus on. But let's talk about some of these other ones that you've got around. Thiswaytoparadise.com. What is that all about?
Yes, that's the one I first started, and that is about where I show people the hidden paradises of the world. I have a special focus on beaches and islands because I tend to love to travel to beaches and islands. I did go, for instance, when I went to Cambodia, of course, I went to Siem Reap, and, that was amazing. But then I also went and discovered some of these hidden islands and beaches in Cambodia, which were some of the most beautiful islands I've ever seen that most you don't hear about. So I'm also, working on, of course, I am now that I'm relocated here in Mexico, I'm not going to stop traveling, and I want to keep showing people special beaches to travel to. That's my favorite way to unwind. So that site has a special focus on beaches, but I also, write a lot about San Miguel and a lot about places that don't necessarily have beaches.
You mentioned Cambodia, and you also discovered that they have a little something in Cambodia many people may not have ever heard about. What is Happy Pizza?
Happy Pizza, if you watch Anthony Bourdain, he has a show where he's actually eating that. And in Cambodia, they actually use marijuana not to smoke, but they use it as a seasoning on their food. And it's very common, and you can see that, they've had such a hard life that they've been through. You can see maybe how they helped cope with it. And Happy Pizza marijuana is used as a seasoning on the pizza. Don't eat a whole one. Yeah. And so, I did a special spotlight on these special Happy Pizzas in Cambodia where you can get them.
Wow. Well, fantastic. I did not know about that. Is it or is it not illegal marijuana in
It is illegal. However, the police tend to overlook it, but they don't always overlook it. There have been raids. Basically what happens is these pizza places bribe the police. So apparently it looks like one pizza place must have made the police mad, didn't come up with this bribe money or something, but they have raided a few of them and arrested tourists. So, go to these places at your own risk. But for the most part, it's overlooked about 99.9% of the time.
I see. Well, I did not know that. Very good. So, okay. So This Way to Paradise, originally it was about islands. Then at some point you were like, wait a minute, but a lot of really amazing places that are paradise aren't really islands. So you were able to expand that a little bit. And from there, from This Way to Paradise, you also started a website called eatingtheglobe.com.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
Well, actually, my favorite part of traveling is always the food. So I love to eat. I love to cook. So I decided to do a whole spotlight on just the food of the countries that I was visiting to and kind of give this food its own site. So that is definitely one of my favorite sites to run, because I always have to go out and try new food, new restaurants, and yeah.
Well, I dig that. I'm one of those people who always is posting his breakfast on Facebook. So I love this sort of thing. So would you say that you concentrate on the really sort of highbrow shishi places, or just even like food trucks?
Oh, no. More food trucks, street food, hole in the wall places. Those are my favorite places to eat. Of course, there are some great highbrow places as well. So I do occasionally write about those. But I also do things like when I went to Greece, oh my God, every place had fantastic food. I knew that I wasn't going to have time to write about each individual place. So what I did is I kind of did these are the Greek specialties. These are the specialty foods you can have in Greece. It's one of the most popular articles on my site. But then I also put where I had taken that picture, kind of where, you can go get that food so that people knew where to go find it. So I do things like that on my site too. If I go visit a place and I'm having many different kinds of food that are part of that culture, I'll kind of just write about all the different foods in one post and put where people can go and find that particular specialty. Why
don't you just tell us one or two of your favorite places to eat in San Miguel?
Oh, wow, that's hard. Let's see. Lavanda restaurant is one of my favorites because their coffee is amazing. Their lavender lattes, they kind of use lavender a lot at that restaurant, and they have the best poached eggs that I've ever had. So that's definitely not a hole in the wall, but it is absolutely excellent. My favorite hole in the wall place is out by the bus station, and they make mixiotis, and right now their name is slipping me, but I've written about it on my site. Mm-hmm. And the mixiotis is lamb that has been covered overnight in the ground and cooked all night long. And it is the most comforting food that you can ever have. And it's actually my favorite thing to eat in San Miguel is mixiotis. And it's just a palapa. And I always pull a chair out into the sun and sit outside of the palapa, but it's a very basic, definite hole in the wall place. It's my favorite place here.
Wow, fantastic. I never heard about that. Curiously, I happen to have a breakfast appointment tomorrow at Cafe Lavanda. I've been there once, and it is unbelievable there.
Yes.
Maybe the best breakfast in San Miguel.
I think it is, for sure. They did a great job there.
Right. Okay, so now let's move on to this one. Now, it wasn't clear to me what this was until I got into the website. You also have travelscamming.com. What is that all about?
Yes. Well, the tagline is enjoy the ride, don't get taken for one.
Right.
And I created it. It is all about how to avoid scams in different countries. And I created this site when I got scammed in Sri Lanka. And I got scammed by tuk-tuk drivers who it was this very elaborate scam. They basically kidnapped me and dropped me off in the middle of nowhere and were going to try to make me give them a lot of money, which I didn't. I ran off. They got very angry. And when I wrote about this scam happening on my This Way to Paradise site, somebody commented and said, there needs to be a site that tells people and warns them of all the scams that go on all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's right, there does. I'll create it. So I created it, and I hope, I'm not hoping to scare people away from traveling, but I just hope to warn people, because if you go in with knowledge of scams or things that could happen, then you go in as an informed traveler and hopefully don't become a victim to, some of these unfortunate scams that do happen in some of the places of the world that you travel to. So I also do put advice on travel scamming as well, safety tips, ways to be more safe when you travel, things like that, so that you have a better travel experience.
Very good. Well, yes, I'm looking at these. Sounds very interesting. We had a professional on the subject of medical tourism. You've got a post there about how to avoid medical tourism scams. You've got the ultimate hotel tip guide. That sounds good. Ooh, here's one. Don't let the bed bugs bite. How to avoid bed bugs in hotels. 5 cell phone safety tips for travel. 7 hidden costs you might not expect on a cruise holiday. And a more recent one, we're back to our favorite topic apparently today, is marijuana legal in Jamaica. What you should know. What's the deal with that?
Well, doing research, I found that a lot of people actually search for that on Google, wondering to know if it's legal. And actually, because Jamaica just passed a law where it's no longer a criminal offense to have marijuana, but this was just last year. Mm-hmm. So before that, it was you could completely be jailed for it, which is kind of surprising because they have one of the highest percentages of marijuana smokers in the world. So basically, this law states that while there's no criminal charges, you can still, if you get caught by the police smoking it or having any in your possession, you will still have to pay a fine. Mm-hmm. So people should be aware of that they are taking that risk. You don't want to light up right in front of a police officer because you will be fined. So I find that it's helpful information for people to have that are going to Jamaica. And I mean, they're actually selling it to you right when you walk out of the airport. So it's good to know that, you still need to be careful with it and that it's still not technically legal, but there's no criminal penalties for possessing it under a certain amount of it. You still can't grow large amounts there legally or possess large amounts or sell it.
Well, the Borderless podcast is all about mostly people who like to do a lot of traveling. So this is wise. I mean, because you can't put rose-colored glasses on. I mean, we're always telling people that in many, many cases, we are misled, for instance, in the United States, about just how dangerous places are, and it is often overblown. But, travelscamming.com is a good resource to make sure you know what you're getting into when you go to a particular country and make sure you don't get scammed because there are scammers everywhere.
Exactly. Right. There's scammers in the U.S. too. So.
Oh, yeah. We just we know about them. We can spot them easily.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. So Valen Dawson is our guest today on the Borderless podcast, writer, traveler, and life purpose coach. She wrote a book, and I wanted to talk about that. Do you go by Val, or shall I call you Valen?
Valen is my preference.
Valen is good. Okay. Yes. So the name of her book is Dreamcatcher, The Magic of Living Your Dream Life. And this is very appropriate to the Borderless podcast. This is what we talk about. And I'm just going through the table of contents here, and it looks very well suited to our listeners. Tell me, at what point did you decide you needed to write this book?
I decided almost immediately when I first got here to San Miguel, because I went through a lot of challenges in my own life to make my own dream come true, which was to live in another country and to travel more. But I made it happen, and I overcame the fear that I first had, and I felt like I would be a good person to use my experiences to teach others the process of how I made this happen. Yeah, so I decided to write the book.
Excellent. Well, I notice in chapter 2, it says, know what you want and why you want it. This is something that comes up a lot because there are a number of people that we find who have an interest in living a more international life. They would like to live as a digital nomad, as people call it, maybe, follow in your footsteps, but you're recommending that you better figure out what it is that you're looking for first.
Absolutely. That's why before I sold everything and did what I did, I actually took a trial 3-month travel trip where I traveled for 3 months without selling everything. I rented out my house on Airbnb and did it as a trial because I said, I've never traveled more than 2 weeks at a time. Who am I to say that I could travel for a month and be tired of it? So as a way to make sure that was, in fact, what I wanted to do, I did it as a trial first. And I really recommend if you're going to take a big step in your life, it makes it a lot less scary if you try it first. Don't just say, I'm going to go live on some remote island. Go to that remote island first and see if you like it. Right. So I really recommend that people try, they may think, we have these visions of travel and how romantic it is, but, there's a lot of hard parts to travel too. And you need to go in fully aware of what you're getting into before you just jump in. That's
really good advice because that is a lot of people here. I know I was told by the person who originally encouraged me to come check out San Miguel. He said, look, do not buy a house here. He says the majority of Americans within the first year or two, most of them do end up going back. He also said if you stay here more than a year or two, he says you are likely never to leave. But so it's just good advice. I mean, know what you want and why you want it. Now, chapter 3 is called Letting Go of Fear. And I want to talk about that in just a minute as we get into not only what the content of your book, Dreamcatcher, The Magic of Living Your Dream Life, is all about, but also the purpose of, yourownlife.org. But first, we would like to give a little attention to our sponsor. Today's Borderless podcast is brought to you by the Condescending Group, your online leader in promoting moral superiority. Well, they're not going to beat around the bush. The fact is the Condescending Group is a little shy on funds. They're kind of shaking their head over it since their policy of reciprocal altruism was considered foolproof, but no question about it, they're broke. Now, they want you to know that money and that ugly sister term profit is still evil. But when your domain registration is almost up, you've been kicked out of your apartment, and you're sleeping in your Prius, they think it's time you stop being so greedy about yourself and start thinking about someone else for a change. And by someone else, they mean them. They need a serious cash infusion and are not opposed to showing up at your house and doing your dishes in exchange for a little hummus and maybe some kale salad or something. Yes, their 2015 mission statement was, "We will let our lofty collectivist light shine into the world, and the universe will provide," has bewilderingly fallen flat on its face. Please go right now to thecondescendinggroup.com and make your generous donation today. The Condescending Group, they care more than you. Help! Okay, so we're back with Valen Dawson. Valen is a writer, traveler, and life purpose coach. We have talked to her about her path, being born in the southern United States, traveling around a lot, ending up in Portland, Oregon there for a while, realizing she wanted to start traveling the globe, starting the website thiswaytoparadise.com, eatingtheglobe.com, travelscamming.com. But then she began to write the inspirational site yourownlife.org, which I think coincides rather nicely with her book, Dreamcatcher, The Magic of Living Your Dream Life, in which Chapter 3 is entitled Letting Go of Fear. Can you share for us what sort of fears you had in so doing?
Yes. When it came to selling everything and just, walking away from a very good job that I had, my fear, of course, for number one, which I think is a lot of people's number one fear, is the fear of not having money. Yeah. If I quit my job, I'm going to starve to death. Mm-hmm. That was probably the biggest fear of all. The second fear was, just going to live in another country. It's different than traveling in another country. What if I won't have any? What if I don't make any friends? What if I wind up all alone? That was my second fear. Those are my two main fears. It's weird. There was such a part of me that knew I wanted to do this. It was mainly getting over the fear of money and fear of, what if I don't meet anyone? What if I wind up all alone? I guess, what if I get to this country and I don't know, I don't have an easy time living there? That would be a fear as well. Mm-hmm. And the way I overcame these fears is I decided to face them. Mm-hmm. And the way I did that is I said, okay, what if I completely run out of money? Then what will happen? Mm-hmm. Well, my then what was, I'll make sure to go back, to where I started from and look for another job. So the worst thing that could happen is I just wound up back where I was before with a regular job, not living where I wanted to live. So I said, okay, well, then I might as well try this, because worst comes to worst, I'll just come, may take a while to find a new job or that kind of thing, but I can always get another job. So that was how I faced the fear of money. And the fear of friends, I said, well, okay, if I go, because I had never been to San Miguel when I moved here. I didn't come check it out first. So I said, well, if it turns out that there's not a community there for me, well, then I'll just go somewhere else. I mean, I was very familiar with moving all throughout the United States and picking up and making new friends. So, that was kind of how I dealt with that. And I just always just questioned, well, if my worst fear comes true, then what will I do? And I feel like that is a really good way. A lot of us we turn our fears into excuses, and we say, well, I can't do this thing because of this. And it's just an excuse, but really it's a fear. And if we actually face that fear and say, well, if that fear happens and does come true, then what will happen? And then you just keep questioning, well, then what will happen? Then what will happen? You just walk yourself through it. And in a way, in your mind, you've kind of made it happen. And then it's like, there's nothing to fear. And you see that it's not as bad as when you avoid those fears. It's like they multiply. Right. And they seem so much bigger than they really are. And it makes it a lot easier, I feel like, to take risk in life when you just really face it instead of trying to run away from it or shove it down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting point. I guess I'd sum that up by saying, okay, fears are understandable, but as Valen says, don't let fears become excuses.
Yes, exactly. We all have fears. And if you try to lie to yourself and say that you don't have a fear about something, well, you really do. That's why you're not taking action. So if you're not taking action, it means, fear is stopping you.
Mm-hmm. So you're calling yourself a life purpose coach.
Yes.
How do you see your role in helping people with these things?
Well, the reason why I titled my site Your Own Life is I'm not trying to force people into any kind of this is what your life should look like. I want them to get to know themselves. And everyone has their own unique purpose and everyone has their own unique dream. And so my goal is to help people know themselves, not for me to tell them this is what your dream should be. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like we all do have a life purpose, and I help people uncover that because there's a lot of people confused. They know they want to be doing something different than what they're doing now, but they don't know what that is. And so I help a lot of people get to that point of how to uncover what they're here for and what it is that they should be doing to make their life feel more fulfilling and meaningful.
Well, that's outstanding. This is the kind of thing that, we find a lot of people who are interested in on this podcast and among the friends that we meet who are not only doing what we're doing, but more appropriately interested in doing what we're doing. But so we talked about some of the things that get in the way of people finding their own life or creating their dream life.
Right.
We talked about fears. What are some other things that you can think of, Valen, that get in the way of people actualizing the life that they truly want to lead?
Well, I think that busyness and routine often gets in the way of it because people live these lives where Monday through Friday, they get busy with all of their activities, with going to work every day, and they get in this routine that they follow. And they don't leave any time every day for doing something they love. It's just this, busyness. And then on the weekends, they're so exhausted from their Monday through Friday lifestyle that they usually just crash out and spend the weekend sleeping or doing things which almost take them away from themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they don't ever just sit down and think of who am I and what is it I want to be doing. I really think that people should take time each day doing something they love and addressing one of their hobbies. And they need to make that a part of each day because if they're not doing that, that's a big reason why people don't feel fulfilled.
Excellent. Okay. You have a chapter in your book that I thought we could talk about too. It's called Know That You Deserve for Your Dreams to Come True.
Yes.
What's the case with that? Some people don't realize that they deserve it, or maybe they don't feel worthy of it.
Right. I really think that one of the main problems in our life with anything is that people don't feel worthy. They don't have a sense of self-love, and they think, wow, everyone else, they look at somebody else who's following their dream and they're really excited for them, and they think that person just must be lucky or deserving, but they don't realize that they deserve to have the life that they want as well. And I think that's a lot of times, when you don't feel like you don't deserve for something to happen, you push that away from you. Mm-hmm. And I really think that a lot of our problems in our world would stop if people would realize how worthy they are as people, what divine beings they are, and how they deserve everything that they want from this life. But not only that they deserve it, that they have the ability to create it.
Mm-hmm. Got you. Very good. They have the power within them to do it. Gotcha.
Yes. And a lot of people don't recognize their own personal power and the power of their thoughts, especially in creating the lives that they want to live.
Okay. So I notice on your website, yourownlife.org, we encourage the Borderless podcast listeners to go to that. You've got something called healing services. So there are services that you provide to people. Can you share with us what they are?
Yes. Locally, I do Tibetan bowl sound healings, mm-hmm. and I help balance people's chakras because we're all made up of vibration and sound. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a big believer in using sound to change. Sound has actually helped me overcome fears in my life. So I'm big into the sound healing, and I do that. And then I also do Reiki, and I can do Reiki long distance. And Reiki also does work on balancing your chakras. It can work on taking away fear. It's a stress reliever. It's a healer. It's a healing energy. And I'm a Reiki master, and it has done a lot in my own life. I give myself Reiki treatments every single day. And it's something I love sharing with other people. And then the other thing that I do is the Skype life coaching, where I actually do counseling sessions with people and help them create their own lives, create their own purpose, help them take the next step, help them get to a place. Some people I just work on helping them with, self-love, helping them with manifesting. There are many different things that I help people do with my life purpose coaching that all, in the end relates to what their life purpose is.
You posted something on your site recently. I saw it on Facebook too. It's an article called, "Are You a Spiritual Junkie? Then You Are Part of the Problem." What about this one?
Yes. So this article, it really came to me that after spending a lot of time in Bali, the spiritual community there, and everywhere I've gone where there's spiritual communities, it seems like there are a lot of people who they get all the healing treatments, they do the yoga, they do all these spiritual things that they, feel like they're supposed to do. But what they're doing is it's like they're using it almost as a way to get their next fix. And they're actually not using it for its purpose, which is to grow as a person and to start taking action.
Right.
They do it enough to where, they feel great and they feel blissful and they're living blissed out and everything's perfect. But guess what? When you're really making changes, it's not going to feel blissful. At first, it's going to feel uncomfortable. When you're expanding as a person, it's very uncomfortable because it usually means that you have to change things, and change is not a comfortable thing. And so I really addressed that of the person who just goes from thing to thing, trying it all, trying to get a fix, but what they're doing is, again, they're looking outside of themselves for this change that needs to be happening inside. And you really have everything. All of these things are great. Going to healers, healers have helped me in my life. But there's a difference in using that to actually bring about change in your life and decide, okay, things can't be different. Now I've got to take responsibility for my own life and change it, instead of just always looking for somebody else to bring change, always looking for someone else to bring inspiration. It comes to a point where you have to be your own inspiration. And in the words of Jesus Christ even said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's not out there in some magic potion. It's got to come from within you. And that's also what I really concentrate on, teaching people how to create their own life and having it come from within them.
I am not just saying this. I could not agree with you more. The thing is, when I saw that article you posted, I posted that funny video that somebody created about how to be ultra spiritual. And a lot of people make fun of these things. For instance, I'm sure there are probably people who make fun of, some of this Reiki stuff and all of that, these healing services. And the reason why is because there's a lot of humor in there, because in addition to people who recognize that we do have a spiritual need, we are sort of spiritual people, and these things do offer help to us, there are some people, it's my opinion, who are just searching for an identity, and they find this thing somewhere. They perceive it, again, as you said, not something they're connected to, but as something outside of them, and they use it as a replacement for their own identity. There, finally, now I'm the whole person that I need to be. And then you've got like that video, that funny video I posted it's sort of like something to put on as a mask to the world and say, no, I have this wonderful, helpful thing and I haven't absorbed it within me. I am, however, showing it to all of you and saying, see, I'm awesome. Look at me with my great ultra spirituality. I don't mean to put these people down. I want people to do whatever they feel moved to do. But there is a way to look into your spiritual need and find things that are actually helpful in your life. And there are people who are spiritual junkies, right?
Right, absolutely. And a lot of times people just use that identity or that mask. That's a good way to put it. Because again, they don't feel worthy enough just on their own. So they have to put this mask. Well, look, I'm super spiritual. And then what happens, there's a lot of spiritual people that put up this almost Buddha mask where they're like, everything's fine and I'm blissful when inside they're falling apart, but they're not being vulnerable to show this to anyone because they don't feel good enough. And they don't feel worthy. Yeah. And so what I want to see happen is that people don't use these these helpful things as masks. They use it to uncover themselves, and it's okay to say, hey, I'm a mess. And if people would start being more open, because that's what when I do my coaching sessions, people are very open with me, and they tell me, their true selves, but they're showing out to the world. They're wondering why, like, they can't find anybody else to identify with because they're not showing that self to other people. Mm-hmm. And we have to start becoming more vulnerable with each other. And one of the ways is to strip off these masks, including the spiritual mask that a lot of us have put up.
Right. So a person has determined what they really want and why they want it. They have worked on letting go of their fears to the degree that they can do that. And they have decided, you know what, I am worthy for my dreams to come true. Now, what do they got to do, Valen?
Well, you have to take action. You just can't sit in meditation all day and expect for your world to change. Yes, your inner world will change, but if you want to make some real changes for your dreams to come true, well, then it takes going and taking some actual steps. And so what I do is I work with people and find out what it is they want to do and come up with a plan. And I really feel like once people want to make a change, they need to be doing something every single day to make that happen. And I can give you an example. I had a client who wanted to quit his job and wanted to start teaching around the world, he wanted to go to school first to get his license and then start teaching around the world. And so I came up with a timeline for him for now, while he's finishing up his job, well, he can start looking at places around the world that he might want to teach and start getting an idea for the climates there and start, looking online and researching that and enroll in the school to go to get this teaching license. And so I helped him formulate a step-by-step plan, a timeline of when he would be doing, these activities in order to make his dream come true.
Excellent. Wow. And
yes.
So what happened with that?
He is about to start the school that he enrolled in. And then when he's finished with that, then he will look for a position, and he's getting ideas for right now of different places that he would be interested in teaching. So
right. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Yeah. It is I found myself, there's a local place. Are you familiar with the local bar here, Valen? It's called Cervescal.
I'm not.
It's right on San Francisco.
Okay.
It's between where you live and the Jardín. It's called Cervescal, so it's a play on the word cerveza and mezcal. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but I was there a couple of nights ago, and there's a young guy, about 25 years old, Mexican guy who, went to chef school but wasn't able to finish. And then a young girl named Dulce, 22 years old, who actually dropped out of high school, and she explained the reasons why that happened. But she's gone back, and she has a few more months, and what she wants to be is an airplane mechanic. And, she just talked to her English is really good. She actually lived in Georgia for a number of years, but she was just talking about it. And she says, well, I think what I'll just be is an auto mechanic, and I said, well, why not the other? And she just said, well, my family just said they think it would be too expensive, and you could just sort of see from the curl on her lip and her eyes and the tilt in her head that, she just was letting other people let go of that. And I said, well, where could you go to school for this? Do you know? And her eyes lit up and she says, I think over here. I think maybe. I said, well, what would it cost to do that? And so, I tried to tell her about my life and how I don't understand how I ended up where I ended up or how it happened. But if it could happen to me in my really weird circumstances, something really good could happen for her too. If she just decides to look at what she needs to do, why she needs to do it, and a reasonable plan for getting there, and keep thinking about it. And that's what Chapter 6 of Valen Dawson's book, Dreamcatcher, The Magic of Living Your Dream Life is. It's entitled, Protect Your Dreams.
Yes.
Because no matter how strong those dreams are, they can and do die, don't they?
They do. They do. I had that happen to me as a child where I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I let my family talk me out of that. Mm. And, I think it's also, I like to use the term protect your wow, because there's a lot of us, we get so excited about something and we start telling our friends and our friends belittle it. Mm-hmm. And then we go, wow, maybe my dreams aren't really that great. Mm-hmm. Whatever you're excited about, that's what your soul is telling you is part of your purpose. And so don't lose that. And you have to choose to set boundaries with people. if you've got people that are belittling you or trying to tell you that you can't make your dream come true, and they're doing this because they didn't make their own dreams come true, then don't spend time with those people. Don't tell those people your dreams. You have to protect your dreams with everything that you have, just like if it was a little egg waiting to hatch.
Yeah.
And you have to not share things with just everybody, because a lot of people will try to belittle what your dreams are. It's sad. It's sad that we as humans can be so unkind to one another, but it's a fact of life. So you just have to be really careful with who you spend time with. And also part of protecting it is go out and look for people who will encourage you in your dreams. Look for other people who are making their dreams come true, because those are the people that you want to be inspired by and associate with.
Yeah, I think that the dream stealers are always able to use the excuse, well, we're just concerned. We don't want to see what happened to you happen to other people. Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
we're just looking at it realistically. Well, guess what?
Right.
This world is not a realistic world.
Right. Exactly.
There are so many people who have beaten the odds, and you can be one of them.
Mm-hmm. So are you wanting to do something different with your life but unsure of your purpose, Borderless podcast listener? Or maybe you know what you want to do but are unsure of the steps that you should take to get there? Maybe you'd like some advice on how to manage your finances better to reach your goals, or you want to know how to increase your self-love, have better relationships. Valen, as part of her services at yourownlife.org, will offer 1-hour guidance sessions to help you live a better life. So go over there to yourownlife.org. Again, we are talking to Valen Dawson. She is a writer, traveler, and life purpose coach. She has 4 websites. ThisWayToParadise.com was supposed to be about island paradises, but then she realized why limit it. EatingTheGlobe.com, really easily cool to enjoy that one. TravelScamming.com, making sure you don't get scammed wherever it is that you're going. And then the inspirational site, YourOwnLife.org. As she says, her main goal is to help people discover the beauty of this world and in themselves. So let me ask you this, Valen, and this, I have famously forgotten again to tell the guest that this is how we usually end the podcast. But there is a question that we ask you, so I hate to put you on the spot, but if there's one piece of advice that you could give to, say, a younger person who is interested in maybe starting their own business, living freely, living authentically, what would that one piece of advice be?
That one piece of advice would be that the world is limitless, and that you can have the ability and the power inside of you to make anything happen that you want to happen, and that you're being given these messages for a reason, and that this world needs you to follow your purpose, because when you follow your purpose, you are fitting that piece of the puzzle of this world that has just been waiting for you.
All right. Well, I hope that's exactly what you needed to hear, Borderless podcast listener. She is Valen Dawson. She's author of Dreamcatcher, The Magic of Living Your Dream Life. I encourage you right now to go to her website, yourownlife.org. Valen Dawson, thank you so much for being a guest on the Borderless podcast.
You're welcome.
All right. So the things we ask you to do at this time, as usual, it would really help us out. If you are listening, hey, let us know, would you? If you go over to borderlesspodcast.com and you click on the Join Now button, it'll give you access to our private Facebook page. We ask you to take just 1 minute and figure out how through iTunes you can go and rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. We'd really appreciate that very much. And as we said, James Guzman will be back next week for the next edition of the Borderless Podcast. Catch you then.
Thanks for joining us for the Borderless Podcast, traveling, investing, and living beyond borders.